Good morning, Little Masters, and welcome back to today's Tolkien Times. I'm the Man of the West, also from the Prancing Pony podcast. Join me as we continue this special week of the TTT, celebrating the holidays in Letters from Father Christmas. It's late November 1929. The boys have each recently turned 12, 9, and 5, and they've been joined by their baby sister, Priscilla, celebrating her first Christmas at 6 months of age. As for Tolkien, do you remember several Tolkien Tuesdays ago when we talked about the late-night chat between Tolkien and Lewis in the latter's rooms at Magdalen College? The one where they were up until 3 in the morning talking about the gods and giants and Asgard? That was just a week or so prior to the writing of this letter, right around the time that Tolkien got a typescript of the Lay of Leithian to Lewis for his input. Now, this letter begins not with a greeting from Father Christmas, but one from North Polar Bear himself, a bear whose name we'll soon discover.
Dear boys, my paw is better. I was cutting Christmas trees when I heard it. Don't you think my writing is much better, too? Father Christmas is very busy already. So am I. We have had heavy snow, and some of our messengers got buried and some lost. That is why you have not heard lately. Love to John for his birthday. Father Christmas says my English spelling is not good. I can't help it. We don't speak English here, only Arctic, which you don't know. We also make our letters different. I've made mine like Arctic letters for you to see. We always write this one symbol for T and V for you. This is some Arctic language, which means goodbye till I see you next, and I hope it will be soon. Mara mesta anni vella tia ento yaratonea. Polar Bear. My real name is Karhu, but I don't tell most people. P.S. I like letters, and I think Christopher's are nice.
Now, what doesn't come through here in the podcast or the YouTube video is the hilariously poor spelling. Busy is spelled B-I-S-Y. Why is W-H-I, and so much more. Now, sure, NPB acknowledges the problem, but he says he can't help it, K-A-N-T. Still, he points out this is not his first language, and that would be the language of Arctic. And then he ends this letter with a note, supposedly in Arctic, saying, "Goodbye till I see you next, and I hope it will be soon." But maybe the way that I pronounced those words earlier sounded familiar to you? If so, there's a good reason for it. This is actually early Quenya. Now, of course, this is also the year that we learn NPB's actual name, Karhu. Now, ever the linguist and fascinated by the Finnish Kalevala, you won't be surprised to learn that Tolkien has used the Finnish word for bear here as the name of North Polar Bear. But then we get the letter proper from Father Christmas. Dear boys and girl, it is a light Christmas again, I'm glad to say. The northern lights have been specially good. There is a lot to tell you. You have heard that the great polar bear chopped his paw when he was cutting Christmas trees. His right one. I mean, not his left. Of course, it was wrong to cut it. And a pity, too, for he spent a lot of the summer learning to write better so as to help me with my winter letters. We had a bonfire this year to please the polar bear, to celebrate the coming in of winter. The snow elves let off all the rockets together, which surprised us both. I have tried to draw you a picture of it, but really, there were hundreds of rockets. You can't see the elves at all against the snow background. The bonfire made a hole in the ice and woke up the great seal who happened to be underneath. The polar bear let off 20,000 silver sparklers afterwards, used up all my stock, so that is why I had none to send you. Then he went for a holiday to North Norway and stayed with a woodcutter called Olaf, and came back with paw all bandaged just at the beginning of our busy times. There seem more children than ever in England, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Germany, which are the countries I specially look after, and of course North America and Canada, not to speak of getting stuff down to the South Pole for children who expect to be looked after, though they have gone to live in New Zealand or Australia or South Africa or China. It is a good thing clocks don't tell the same time all over the world, or I should never get round. Although when my magic is strongest at Christmas, I can do about 1,000 stockings a minute if I have it all planned out beforehand. And just so you know, folks, I was tempted to actually run the numbers on that and do a little science sidebar, and I decided I'm just not going to mess around with Christmas. Father Christmas continues, you could hardly guess the enormous piles of lists I make out. I seldom get them mixed. But I am rather worried this year. In my office and packing room, the polar bear reads out names while I copy them down. We had awful gales here, worse than you did, tearing clouds of snow to a million tatters, screaming like demons, burying my house almost up to the roofs. Just at the worst, the polar bear said it was stuffy and opened a north window before I could stop him. You can guess the result. The North Polar Bear was buried in papers and lists, but that did not stop him laughing. Also, all my red and green ink was upset, as well as black, so I am writing in chalk and pencil. I have some black ink left, and the polar bear is using it to address parcels. I liked all your letters, very much indeed, my dears. Nobody, or very few, writes so much or so nicely to me. I'm specially pleased with Christopher's card and his letters, and with his learning to write, so I am sending him a fountain pen and also a special picture for himself. It shows me crossing the sea on the upper north wind, while a southwest gale, reindeer hate it, is raising big waves below. This must be all now. I send you all my love. One more stocking to fill this year. I hope you will like your new house and the things I bring you. Your old Father Christmas. I love how Tolkien reveals little facts about Father Christmas over the years. In this case, it's the countries that he especially looks after, and his stocking-filling efficiency. And of course, there's always a story of how North Polar Bear messed things up, this time by opening a window in the middle of a gale. It's also heartwarming to see that his kids actually wrote to Father Christmas and that he took note of it. Nobody, or very few, writes so much or so nicely. And he even calls out Christopher's writing in particular. He's only just turned 5 at this point, so a fountain pen is a perfect gift for a 5-year-old. Wait a minute, fountain pen? Really? For a 5-year-old? I guess Christopher was always ahead of the rest, I imagine. Finally, we get a mention of a pending move. He says, I hope you will like your new house and the things I bring you. Well, indeed, the Tolkien family had been living at 22 Northmoor Road in Oxford since January 1926. But after 4 years there, they've outgrown the space and they were about to move next door to 20 Northmoor Road. Now, I've moved before, and I can tell you the last thing I'm doing is writing fancy letters as Father Christmas when there are boxes that need packing. Folks, that wraps it up for today in the Letters from Father Christmas. Join me again tomorrow as we look to 1930 and the North Polar Bear's case of whooping cough. Learn how you can support the TTT by visiting patreon.com/Tolkien Times. You can become part of my content council, join me for a monthly hangout, get a full bonus episode every week, and all sorts of things. If you're watching this on YouTube, you know the drill. Like and subscribe, and follow or subscribe in your podcast apps. Follow @Tolkien Times on social media. And finally, as Faramir says, go with the goodwill of all good men.